Most people don't wake up one day and realize their life has fallen apart. It happens quietly. A dream postponed, a habit ignored, a standard lowered just a little at a time. And one day you look around and wonder how you ended up so far from the person you once hoped to become. Not because you failed once, but because you stopped rebuilding. Here's the truth: most people avoid. Life does not stay neutral. You are either growing or you are declining. There is no standing still. The question is not whether change is happening, but whether you are directing it or letting it happen to you. Because the same life that can slowly wear you down can also be the one that builds you back stronger if you choose to take control. Rebuilding yourself does not begin with motivation or dramatic decisions. It begins with awareness. The awareness that what got you here will not get you where you want to go. The awareness that waiting for the right time is costing you time. And the awareness that you still have something powerful within your reach, the ability to change direction. This moment, right now, is not about regret. It's about responsibility. It's about deciding that from this point forward, you will no longer leave your life under construction without a builder. Personal responsibility is the starting point of every meaningful transformation. It is the moment a person stops pointing outward and begins looking inward. Many people spend years waiting for conditions to improve, for someone to rescue them, or for life to become fair. But growth never begins there. The moment you accept responsibility for your life, you reclaim control over it. This does not mean blaming yourself for everything that went wrong, nor does it mean denying that circumstances, people, or events played a role. It means recognizing that regardless of how you arrived here, you are now the one who must decide where to go next. When a person avoids responsibility, they also avoid power. Blame may feel comforting in the short term, but it quietly steals the ability to change. If your problems are always caused by the economy, your upbringing, your boss, or your luck, then the solution is always outside your reach. Responsibility shifts that equation. It says, "This is my life, and I am the one who will shape it from here." That single shift in thinking can alter the trajectory of an entire future. Taking responsibility requires maturity. It asks you to admit that your habits, attitudes, and choices, small as they may seem, have contributed to your current results. This is not meant to produce guilt. It is meant to produce clarity. When you understand that today's reality is largely the result of yesterday's decisions, you also understand that tomorrow can be different if you decide differently today. Responsibility turns life into a cause and effect relationship rather than a random series of events. Many people fear responsibility because they associate it with pressure. In truth, responsibility is freedom. When you accept responsibility, you stop being a victim of circumstance and become an architect of progress. You may not control everything that happens to you, but you always control how you respond, what you learn, and what you do next. That control is where rebuilding begins. Without it, any attempt at change is temporary and fragile. Responsibility also sharpens awareness. Once you stop making excuses, you start noticing patterns. You begin to see how certain decisions lead to certain outcomes. You recognize which habits move you forward and which quietly pull you backward. This awareness is essential for rebuilding, because you cannot strengthen a structure without understanding why it weakened in the first place. Responsibility forces you to observe yourself honestly, without emotional shortcuts. Another powerful aspect of responsibility is that it raises standards. When you fully own your life, you no longer tolerate mediocrity in your thinking or behavior. You stop saying, "This is just how I am," and start asking, "Who must I become?" Responsibility pushes you to improve skills, refine character, and manage time more intentionally. It encourages growth not because someone demands it, but because you recognize the cost of staying the same. Responsibility also changes how you view failure. Instead of seeing failure as proof of inability, you see it as feedback. When something doesn't work, the responsible person asks, "What can I do differently?" rather than, "Why did this happen to me?" This mindset turns setbacks into stepping stones. Every mistake becomes information, and every disappointment becomes direction. Over time, this builds resilience, confidence, and wisdom. Perhaps most importantly, responsibility restores self-respect. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are handling your life with intention. Even when progress is slow, there is dignity in effort and pride in ownership. Rebuilding yourself is not about perfection, it is about commitment. Responsibility is the commitment to grow, to learn, and to keep moving forward regardless of how many times you fall short. In the end, personal responsibility is not a burden placed on you. It is a gift you give yourself. It is the decision to stop waiting and start building. Once you accept that your future is shaped more by your choices than your conditions, rebuilding becomes not only possible, but inevitable. Honest self-assessment is one of the most challenging yet powerful acts of personal growth. Most people avoid it not because they are incapable, but because it requires courage. It demands that you look at yourself without filters, without justification, and without the comfort of excuses. Rebuilding yourself cannot begin with illusion. If you want to improve the structure of your life, you must first examine it as it truly is, not as you wish it to be or as you present it to others. Many people confuse self-assessment with self-criticism, but they are not the same. Self-criticism attacks the person, while self-assessment evaluates behavior, habits, and thinking patterns. One weakens confidence, the other strengthens it. Honest evaluation does not say, "I am not good enough." It says, "This area needs work." That distinction is essential because rebuilding requires clarity, not shame. Shame paralyzes growth, while clarity directs it. Without honest self-assessment, people tend to repeat the same mistakes under different names. A failed relationship becomes bad luck. A missed opportunity becomes poor timing. A lack of progress becomes circumstances. When patterns go unexamined, they continue. But when you pause and ask hard questions, how did I contribute to this outcome? What habits led me here? What did I ignore? You begin to break cycles. Awareness disrupts repetition. Self-assessment also reveals hidden strengths, not just weaknesses. Many people underestimate themselves because they have never taken the time to observe what they do well. When you evaluate yourself honestly, you gain a balanced view. You recognize your abilities, your progress, and your potential. This balance is critical because rebuilding yourself requires both humility and belief. You must know where you fall short, but you must also know what you can build upon. Another reason honest assessment is difficult is because it removes comfortable stories. Excuses are easy to carry. Truth is heavier at first. It is easier to say, "I don't have time," than to admit, "I haven't made this a priority." It is easier to say, "I'm not talented," than to admit, "I haven't practiced." Honest assessment strips away these narratives and replaces them with responsibility and direction. While uncomfortable, this process is liberating because it replaces confusion with understanding. When you evaluate yourself truthfully, you begin to see the gap between intention and action. Many people have good intentions but poor execution. They want growth, success, and peace, yet their daily behaviors do not support those desires. Self-assessment exposes this gap. It forces alignment. Once you see the mismatch between what you want and what you do, change becomes unavoidable. You either adjust your actions or lower your expectations. Growth happens when you adjust your actions. Honest self-assessment also improves decision-making. When you know your tendencies, whether you procrastinate, avoid conflict, overcommit, or quit too early, you can plan around them. You stop relying on motivation and start designing discipline. You create systems that support your growth instead of sabotaging it. This awareness turns personal development from guesswork into strategy. Another powerful outcome of self-assessment is emotional maturity. When you understand your triggers, fears, and patterns, you stop reacting blindly. You pause. You choose. Rebuilding yourself requires this emotional awareness because progress is rarely smooth. Without understanding yourself, frustration leads to quitting. With understanding, frustration becomes feedback. You learn to respond rather than react. Many people avoid self-assessment because they fear what they might find. But what they don't realize is that unexamined weaknesses already affect their lives. Ignoring them does not make them disappear. It allows them to operate unchecked. Facing them brings them into the light, where they can be addressed. Growth does not begin with comfort. It begins with honesty. Rebuilding yourself is not about becoming someone else. It is about refining who you already are. Honest self-assessment is the mirror that shows what must be repaired, strengthened, or redesigned. Without that mirror, effort is scattered and progress is accidental. With it, rebuilding becomes intentional, focused, and sustainable. Discipline is often misunderstood because people associate it with restriction, pressure, or punishment. In reality, discipline is a form of self-respect. It is the ability to choose what you want most over what you want now. When rebuilding yourself, discipline becomes essential because motivation is temporary, emotions are unreliable, and circumstances are unpredictable. Only discipline remains steady enough to carry you forward when enthusiasm fades. Every meaningful result in life is connected to a series of small, repeated actions. These actions may appear insignificant on their own, but over time they shape character, skill, and outcome. Discipline is what ensures those actions happen consistently. It is waking up when you said you would, doing the work when no one is watching, and staying committed when progress feels slow. Without discipline, vision remains a wish. With discipline, vision becomes structure. Many people wait for the right mood before acting, but discipline reverses that relationship. Action comes first and emotion follows. When you act with discipline, confidence grows because you prove to yourself that you can be trusted. Each disciplined choice strengthens self-belief. Each undisciplined choice weakens it. Rebuilding yourself requires restoring that trust with yourself, and discipline is the process through which that trust is rebuilt. Discipline also creates momentum. When you keep promises to yourself, even small ones, you build internal momentum that spills into other areas of life. A disciplined morning routine leads to better focus. Better focus leads to higher quality decisions. Higher quality decisions lead to better results. What looks like a simple habit is actually a chain reaction. Discipline connects effort to outcome in a way nothing else can. Another critical role of discipline is protection. It protects your time, your energy, and your standards. Without discipline, life fills your schedule with distractions, obligations, and noise. With discipline, you decide what deserves your attention. You learn to say no to what weakens you so you can say yes to what strengthens you. Rebuilding yourself is impossible if you are constantly pulled away from what matters by what is convenient. Discipline also removes dependence on external validation. When your actions are guided by discipline, you no longer need praise to continue. You no longer quit because no one noticed your effort. You understand that growth often happens quietly. This internal drive is crucial because rebuilding yourself is rarely applauded in the beginning. Most of the work happens in private, long before results are visible. One of the greatest benefits of discipline is how it transforms difficulty. What once felt hard becomes routine. What once required effort becomes automatic. This does not happen through intensity, but through consistency. Discipline reduces resistance by repetition. The more often you do the right thing, the less effort it requires. Over time, discipline stops feeling like force and starts feeling like identity. Discipline also teaches patience. It reminds you that meaningful change does not come from dramatic bursts of effort, but from steady progress. Many people sabotage themselves by trying to change everything at once. Discipline focuses on what can be done daily, not dramatically. It respects the process. Rebuilding yourself is not about speed, it is about sustainability. Without discipline, talent fades, potential decays, and opportunities are wasted. With discipline, even limited ability can produce extraordinary results. Discipline levels the playing field because it is available to anyone willing to practice it. It does not require special circumstances, luck, or approval. It only requires a decision repeated daily. When you rebuild yourself, discipline becomes the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. It is the structure that supports growth when motivation collapses. It is the quiet strength that carries you through resistance, doubt, and fatigue. Through discipline, progress becomes predictable, improvement becomes measurable, and change becomes permanent. Your philosophy is the invisible framework through which you interpret life. It shapes how you see opportunity, how you respond to difficulty, and what you believe is possible for you. Long before results appear on the outside, they are formed on the inside through beliefs, attitudes, and expectations. When rebuilding yourself, changing your philosophy is not optional. It is essential because behavior follows belief, and outcomes follow behavior. Many people attempt to change their lives by changing actions alone, without examining the thinking that produced those actions. This creates temporary improvement at best. If the underlying philosophy remains the same, old habits eventually return. A person who believes success is rare will unconsciously avoid opportunities. A person who believes effort does not matter will quit early. These beliefs operate quietly, but powerfully. Rebuilding yourself requires identifying and reshaping these internal rules. Your philosophy is built over time from experiences, influences, and interpretations. Some of it is useful, some of it outdated, and some of it harmful. If you believe that failure defines you, you will avoid risks. If you believe that growth is painful and pointless, you will resist effort. These beliefs may not be spoken, but they are practiced daily. Honest growth requires questioning them. Not every belief you hold is true, but every belief you hold affects how you live. When you change your philosophy, you change the meaning you assign to events. Challenges stop being threats and start becoming training. Effort stops being punishment and becomes investment. Time stops being something to escape and becomes something to use. This shift in meaning alters behavior naturally, without force. You no longer need to push yourself as hard because your thinking pulls you forward. Philosophy also determines standards. What you tolerate, what you accept, and what you settle for are all rooted in belief. If you believe you deserve growth, you will raise your standards. If you believe struggle is normal and useful, you will persist. If you believe improvement is possible, you will keep learning. Rebuilding yourself depends on these standards because life tends to reward what you consistently demand of yourself. Another critical aspect of philosophy is responsibility. A strong philosophy includes the belief that your choices matter. When you believe your actions influence your future, you act with greater care. You plan, you prepare, and you think long-term. When you believe life is mostly luck or fate, effort feels pointless. Philosophy determines whether you see yourself as a participant or a bystander in your own life. Your philosophy also shapes how you interpret other people's success. If you believe success is scarce, you may feel threatened by others' achievements. If you believe success is the result of principles and discipline, you see it as proof that growth is possible. This difference matters because it affects motivation. A healthy philosophy inspires learning instead of comparison, effort instead of envy. Changing philosophy does not happen through motivation alone. It happens through exposure to better ideas, reflection, and deliberate thinking. You rebuild your philosophy by asking better questions. What do I believe about effort? What do I believe about failure? What do I believe about time, discipline, and growth? Each answer reveals a rule you are living by. Rewriting those rules changes the direction of your life. When philosophy improves, consistency improves. You no longer rely on willpower alone because your actions align with your beliefs. Doing the right thing feels logical rather than forced. This alignment creates internal stability, which is crucial when rebuilding yourself. Without it, you are constantly fighting yourself. With it, progress feels natural. Ultimately, your future is not shaped by what you want, but by what you believe. Desire without philosophy is weak, but belief reinforced by action creates momentum. When you rebuild your philosophy, you rebuild the foundation upon which all goals, habits, and results stand. Change the framework, and everything built upon it begins to change with it. Adversity is often misunderstood because it arrives uninvited and usually disguised as loss, failure, or disappointment. Most people instinctively resist it, wishing it away or seeing it as proof that something has gone wrong. Yet adversity is not an interruption to growth, it is a part of it. When rebuilding yourself, adversity becomes one of the most powerful teachers you will ever encounter, not because it is pleasant, but because it is honest. Adversity exposes what comfort hides. When life is easy, habits go untested and weaknesses remain concealed. Pressure reveals character, discipline, and mindset in ways success never does. When plans fall apart and expectations collapse, you are forced to confront how you think, how you respond, and what you truly value. This exposure is uncomfortable, but it is necessary for rebuilding because you cannot strengthen what has never been challenged. One of the greatest lessons adversity teaches is self-reliance. When support disappears or outcomes fail to meet expectations, you learn what you can handle on your own. You discover inner resources you did not know existed. Strength, patience, and resilience are rarely developed during comfortable periods. They are forged when you must continue without reassurance, applause, or certainty. Adversity strips away illusions and leaves you face to face with your capabilities. Adversity also sharpens perspective. Many things that once seemed urgent lose their importance when faced with real difficulty. You begin to distinguish between what matters and what merely distracts. This clarity is critical when rebuilding yourself because it redirects energy toward meaningful priorities. Loss and hardship often simplify life by removing excess and revealing what truly deserves attention. Another powerful lesson of adversity is humility. It reminds you that growth is ongoing and that confidence must be balanced with learning. When plans fail, ego softens and curiosity grows. You begin to ask questions instead of making assumptions. This openness allows growth to continue. People who avoid adversity often cling to rigid identities, while those who endure it evolve. Adversity also teaches patience. Rebuilding yourself after a setback is rarely quick. Progress may be slow, uneven, and frustrating. Adversity forces you to stay committed without immediate results. This patience strengthens discipline and deepens character. You learn to work without guarantees, which is a crucial skill for long-term success. One of the most important lessons adversity offers is accountability. When excuses no longer work, responsibility becomes unavoidable. You can either surrender to bitterness or rise with intention. Adversity does not make decisions for you, it reveals them. The choice to learn rather than collapse defines the direction of your growth. This is where rebuilding truly begins. Adversity also develops empathy. When you have experienced struggle, you understand others more deeply. You become less judgmental and more patient. This emotional maturity improves relationships and leadership. Rebuilding yourself is not only about personal success, but also about how you interact with others. Adversity refines this dimension by expanding understanding. Another critical aspect of adversity is how it strengthens resolve. When you survive difficult periods, fear loses some of its power. You realize that pain is temporary and that you can endure more than you once believed. This realization builds confidence that cannot be gained through comfort alone. It is quiet, grounded confidence rooted in experience. Many people try to avoid adversity at all costs, not realizing that avoidance often leads to stagnation. Growth requires resistance. Muscles strengthen against weight, character strengthens against challenge, and wisdom strengthens against failure. Adversity is not a curse placed on progress. It is the process through which progress is refined. Rebuilding yourself without adversity would result in a fragile structure. It might look impressive, but it would lack depth and durability. Adversity adds strength to the foundation by forcing adaptation, learning, and resilience. Those who learn from it emerge wiser, stronger, and more capable of handling future challenges. Adversity does not arrive to destroy you. It arrives to instruct you. When approached with humility and reflection, it becomes a powerful guide. Those who listen to its lessons do not merely recover, they evolve into stronger versions of themselves. Daily improvement is the quiet force behind every lasting transformation. Most people overestimate what can be changed in a short period of time and underestimate what can be achieved through small, consistent progress. Rebuilding yourself does not require dramatic reinvention. It requires steady refinement. The idea of improving a little each day may seem ordinary, but when practiced consistently, it produces extraordinary results. Every day presents choices that appear insignificant in isolation. Reading a few pages, practicing a skill for a short time, choosing patience over reaction, or making a healthier decision may not feel life-changing in the moment. Yet these choices accumulate. Each small improvement adds a layer to the structure you are rebuilding. Over time, these layers form habits, character, and capability. Consistency turns effort into identity. One of the reasons daily improvement is so powerful is because it lowers resistance. Large goals often trigger fear, doubt, or procrastination. Small improvements feel manageable. They reduce overwhelm and make progress accessible. When the focus is on being slightly better today than yesterday, momentum builds naturally. Rebuilding yourself becomes a process you can sustain rather than a pressure you eventually abandon. Daily improvement also creates self-trust. Every time you follow through on a small commitment, you reinforce the belief that you can rely on yourself. This trust is essential because rebuilding yourself requires patience. When progress feels slow, self-trust keeps you moving. Without it, doubt takes over and effort fades. Small wins strengthen confidence in a way grand promises never do. Another important aspect of daily improvement is adaptability. Life rarely follows a straight path. When you focus on daily progress instead of rigid outcomes, you remain flexible. Setbacks do not feel like failure, they feel like part of the process. You adjust, learn, and continue. This adaptability makes growth resilient. Rebuilding yourself becomes less about perfection and more about persistence. Daily improvement also sharpens awareness. When you commit to small progress, you pay closer attention to habits, decisions, and patterns. You begin to notice what works and what doesn't. This awareness allows refinement. Growth becomes intentional rather than accidental. Instead of reacting to life, you actively shape it one day at a time. Another strength of daily improvement is how it compounds. Small gains multiply when given time. A minor skill improvement repeated daily can lead to mastery. A slight shift in mindset practiced consistently can change outlook entirely. This compounding effect is often invisible in the early stages, which is why many people quit. Those who persist understand that progress is happening even when results are not yet obvious. Daily improvement also protects against burnout. Extreme effort followed by exhaustion leads to inconsistency. Sustainable improvement respects energy and balance. It allows growth without collapse. When rebuilding yourself, sustainability matters more than speed. Daily progress ensures that growth continues even during difficult periods. Another overlooked benefit of daily improvement is how it reshapes identity. When you improve daily, you stop seeing growth as something you chase and start seeing it as something you do. You become a learner, a builder, a disciplined person. Identity drives behavior more powerfully than motivation. Once growth becomes part of who you are, consistency becomes natural. Daily improvement also encourages gratitude and humility. When progress is incremental, you learn to appreciate small victories. You recognize effort rather than waiting for outcomes. This mindset reduces frustration and increases satisfaction. Rebuilding yourself becomes rewarding instead of exhausting. Many people wait for the perfect moment to change, not realizing that the perfect moment is ordinary and available daily. Improvement does not require ideal conditions, it requires intention. Even difficult days offer opportunities to grow slightly stronger, wiser, or more disciplined. Rebuilding yourself through daily improvement creates a strong, stable foundation. It may not attract immediate attention, but it produces lasting change. Over time, the person who commits to small, consistent progress surpasses the one who relies on intensity alone. Daily improvement transforms effort into excellence, one day at a time. As we come to the close, remember this: rebuilding yourself is not a one-time decision. It is a lifelong commitment. It is the choice to take responsibility for your life, to examine yourself honestly, to practice discipline even when it is uncomfortable, to reshape your thinking, to learn from adversity, and to improve a little every single day. These principles are simple, but they are not easy, and that is exactly why they work. Anyone can wish for change, but only those who are willing to rebuild themselves earn it. You do not need to be perfect to begin, and you do not need to have everything figured out. You only need the courage to start where you are and the discipline to continue. Progress may be slow, setbacks may come, and doubt may visit, but each step forward strengthens the foundation you are building. Over time, small improvements become remarkable transformation. The greatest project you will ever work on is not your career, your finances, or your reputation. It is you. When you commit to rebuilding yourself, you raise your standards, expand your potential, and create a future that reflects your effort and your values. I wish you strength when the journey feels difficult, clarity when choices seem uncertain, and persistence when results take time. May you continue to grow, improve, and rebuild yourself into the person you are capable of becoming. Good luck on your journey, and thank you for your time and attention.